one. We still have some issue, and I feel like. Yeah, I'm like, you've thought a lot about it more than I have, so I'll just go with what you're saying. We can't find a bike and walk it person. Thank you.
Welcome everyone to the Planning Commission. We are now ready to begin. Commissioner Fresco. Commissioner Fresco.
So we just came to.
Yeah,
I'm
just,
trying to.
please stop.
I just because of where Commissioner Fresco lives, that may be a conflict for her participation in the review of this plan. So I'm going to be assessing that while the staff presentation occurs.
So please join us.
And so she's going to not sit on the dais until we make that determination. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I call this meeting of the regular meeting of the Planning Commission to order, Wednesday, September the 2nd. Can we have the Pledge of Allegiance? Commissioner Kennedy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Fonda Bernardi. Here. Commissioner Kennedy.
Here.
Commissioner Newbold.
Here.
Commissioner Perry.
Here.
And Chair McKinnon.
Present. And as noted, Commissioner Fresco is sitting it out for the time being until the attorney reports. Item 4, the Planning Director's report.
Good evening. Coming up for our next agenda on the 16th, the packets will be going out in the next couple of days. We have a hearing at 142 Hollister. It's an ARB appeal. We also have a development agreement application for 1601 Lincoln. That's the Norm site. And then a fence height variance appeal at 530 17th Street. So those are the three items that will be on September 16th. And then in October, actually, both of the meetings will be development review meetings. We have a condo project at 1420 through 22 20th Street. We have a parking variance at 1633 Oceanfront Walk, and then a alcohol CUP at 520 Broadway. Those are on October 7th. Then on October 21st, we have a CUP for expansion at Truxton's on Santa Monica and 14th. Development agreement amendment for 530 Pico. That's the hotel, and then a development review and variance for 1919 Santa Monica Boulevard to convert space from general office to medical office. And then we also have a variance at 1636 Bryn Mawr. So those are the next three Planning Commission hearings. Coming up at City Council on September 29th, the Georgian Hotel appeal. And that's it for the 29th. And then coming up on October 13th, two of the development agreements that the Planning Commission has seen recently, the 14, 15, 5th, and the Denny's. Those are both going to City Council on the 13th. And then we are also that night awarding the car share operator contract. And also October is a National Planning Month, so we are going to have a presentation at the council meeting, or proclamation at the council meeting on the 13th for the to recognize planning efforts of the commission and staff. And then coming up, community meetings and workshops, September 12th, the Wellbeing Festival from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. September 19th is the Kiddical Mass event at Clover Park, 9 a.m. to noon. And then the first week in October is Bike It, Walk It. And I think that concludes my report.
Any commissioners with comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Martin. Number 5, Planning Commissioner announcements. Not seeing anyone. Item 6, approval of the minutes. 6A, the minutes of August the 5th, 2015.
I move approval.
Is there a seconder? Commissioner Kennedy seconds it. We need 4 commissioners to vote for it who were here on that evening. I don't have those minutes in front of me. Everyone was here? Okay. All those in favour of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those against? No. Carried. Okay, that brings us to item number 8. Study session on the Lincoln Neighbourhood Corridor Plan, which has been in the works for several years now. Mr. James, I believe you're presenting on behalf of the Planning Department. Very exciting. We look forward to your 20 minutes.
Thank you very much.
So, Commissioners, just before Mr. James starts, Mr. James will speak for 20 minutes or so. I think if we've got, okay, 20 minutes then. If we've got technical questions at that moment, I think that's a good moment to ask questions of fact. Then we'll go to the public comment and then come back to questions about policy, why directions have been taken, and then we'll take the view of the Commission about the issues that you've presented. So, Mr. James.
Very good. Thank you, and good evening, Planning Commission. Now, I have been cautioned to keep this rather brief, but before we start the clock...
Focused, Mr.
I
James.
would like to recognize our team in the audience, as well as some neighborhood folks that have spent an awful lot of time putting this together. So in the front row, we have Tim Rood from CDNA. He's been our lead on the consultant side. Michelle Glickert from Strategic Planning. She's been helping out in all aspects of the plan, but particularly with respect to medians and crosswalks. Tim McCormick from the Big Blue Bus, who we've asked to join us tonight if we get into a discussion about the bus lanes and what the benefits would be to the city and to the system, as well as our group from the Lincoln Boulevard Task Force, Roger Swanson, Dolores Sloan, and Gloria Garvin, and Mary Marlowe. There are others, of course, but those are the few that have come tonight. The others are watching from home. So let me start my stopwatch here. Chair McKinnon, and let's get into the program. Tonight we're going to update you on about a year's worth of activity associated with the Lincoln Neighborhood Corridor Plan. We have put this together in a slight variant from the way we presented it at the workshop. We've begun to think a little bit about how we might implement and move this forward. So that's how we've organized it. We can talk a little bit about ways we might fund it, and then get into the next steps and your feedback. Just to lay the context for the project for those at home, we're talking about 1.25 mile of roadway through neighborhood areas. Sunset Park and the Pico Neighborhood Association is home to over 150 businesses, 2 high schools, and carries traffic loads of up to 50,000 cars a day. It's also the gateway into Santa Monica from Los Angeles, and at the northern end at the freeway overpass, it's the gateway into our downtown. So it has a very complex profile. And when we contemplate doing something to the street, we're actually affecting a lot of livelihoods, a lot of lifestyles, and so we want to be very cautious how we move forward. The Luce had a pretty simple vision for Lincoln Boulevard, which was to really focus on pedestrian enhancements, aesthetic enhancements, take a closer look at the dedicated bus lane facility, and make Lincoln truly a transit-enhanced street. Also talked about bringing in uses that would better serve the neighborhoods. From the community side over the years, Lincoln's gotten a little bit of a bad rap. It's been called trafficky and noisy and messy and dirty. And despite the prevalence of uses that are used every single day by members of our community, the auto repair shops, the small cafes, more and more there's been lifestyle shops opening up, it still is lacking in a truly holistic palette of things that would better serve the neighborhoods from a walking and biking perspective. So when we were given control of the street in 2012, when Caltrans relinquished it to us, and we were asked to take on a streetscape project, we stepped back a little bit and thought about ways that we could really make Lincoln perform better, not just from a physical streetscape perspective, but also from a programmatic perspective. How could we make small adjustments to the way that the transportation network worked? And then more importantly, what could we do with the business community to stimulate more vibrancy, to really get our hands on the pulse of the street and to nurture it? So we've established a series of goals, which are all described in the staff report, that have been guiding us in these three categories all along the way. Where we are at this evening is in the third of 4 phases, where we've gathered a tremendous amount of information and presented the community with a wide variety of concepts. We've gotten their input. We've worked continually with the business community, with our local stakeholders and the task force, and we've now begun to compile that into a cohesive vision. As we move forward, we'll be looking at ways to implement early. There is a focus here on more tactical implementation, things that we can do with low cost, low process, to bring immediate change. But ultimately, I think where we'll end up is with a detailed schematic streetscape plan and a set of guidelines that will help us enhance the transportation network and improve the pulse of the business community. Our outreach has been comprehensive. I want to start again by recognizing the hard work of the Lincoln Boulevard Task Force. They've been participants in all of our discussions about all aspects of the plan. But we've also taken it to the broader community, of course. We've held 2 workshops to date. Several of you were at the last workshop. Thanks for coming. And then we've also taken it online. And our My Sidewalk account has generated quite a bit of comments, which we brought with us tonight, as well as understanding of where people's interests lie across some of these trade-offs that we're discussing this evening, like medians, et cetera. At our first workshop, which sort of established the focus of some of these elements, people voted across a variety of categories. The most popular in the streetscape category were the medians, as well as pedestrian lighting and freeway bridge improvements. So these are sort of the bigger ticket items. Not surprising at all. It's something that we've observed Lincoln sorely needs. In the transportation category, the dedicated bus lanes won by quite a bit. Curiously, the largest proponents of that concept at the time were the bicycle community. And in the business improvement category, people tended to gravitate towards things that were more, I guess, would be understood to be funded by the city. But of those things that are on private property, people thought that more public art and better landscaping and adaptive reuse would be excellent choices. So after our August 6th workshop, this is what we have to present you with. Thoughts on early implementation. So these are things we think we can do in the near future. They don't cost a lot of money. There's not a lot of red tape. Oftentimes we're looking at using available resources and willing participants. But a word of caution that we're just not at that phase in the project yet where we have sort of a cohesive brand for a lot of these. So we know that coordination will be key if moving forward is something we want to do. So in this category, we think we can plant up to 20 new trees in the next year. Of course, more trees can be added as money becomes available, as the streetscape itself gets built out. But within the next year, we can fill all the empty tree wells on Lincoln Boulevard. In fact, we have a meeting with the task force on the 23rd of September to talk about the tree species selection. We can also improve the existing parkways. There's only 8 of them, so it's not a tremendous task, and mostly they need some cleanup and some drought-tolerant landscaping. There's an opportunity for us to take a unique approach to our gateway entrance and to look at a paint and planters idea where we literally use some high quality paint, some large planters, and create bulb outs at the Ozone and Lincoln intersection. This is an area where if the dedicated bus lane moves forward, the bus will have already transitioned out of its dedicated bus lane, which would be in the parking facility. So there's no conflict there. And this is a relatively cheap and fresh way of creating a place at a place where there currently is no place. We can also begin to unify the various street furniture elements. Right now there's at least 3 different types of trash cans, which kind of takes away from the conformity of a streetscape. So we have available resources in storage, or we can allocate some money to decided upon trash can. Same with the benches. There are opportunities for us to normalize a lot of the seating furniture on the street. And our logic is that we want to create places where people can throw their trash and sit in areas near activity or where there's a big gap between activity. We've heard a lot of complaints about there being trash on the street and not enough trash cans. We can install bike racks. We have bike racks. We have money for bike racks. We'd look at a logic that tied the installation of bike racks to eating establishments, drinking establishments, as well as places where the Loose and the Bicycle Action Plan have designated these intersections as mobility hubs. We'll talk about corrals in a little bit, but those come a little bit later because we're still working on them, on how to clean them. We can create a couplet at Pearl to connect the bicycle network. This is the map of the Bicycle Action Plan bike network, which takes us across Lincoln. What we think we can do is, just in a very cheap way, is add some signage, have bicyclists that are moving in a westbound direction make right turns. What am I doing here? Am I going make right turns onto Kensington and then try to connect onto what street is this here? 6th Street in the eastbound direction, and then in the westbound direction we would transition them up Strand and onto Pearl. This is the vital corridor to Santa Monica College. All of the side streets that front onto Lincoln Boulevard look like this, and there's this lady standing on the corner here. One of the early implementation ideas is to create visible crosswalks so that this pedestrian has a place to cross in the roadway. We'll get to creating crosswalks on Lincoln Boulevard in the next phase, but this is something that we can likely do in the near term. Our short-term facade improvement projects right now it's an inventory. It looks a little bit like this. We're still working on it. These are very, very simple recommendations to private property owners. Paint your building a different color. Use some of the architectural elements to break down the mass. Consider changing your awning type. If this were seeded with some type of matching money in the future, I think this would really transition Lincoln Boulevard quite quickly, sort of pre-conceptualized ideas for how to make simple and low cost and projects that don't require a tremendous amount of permitting from the city, but just really begin to clean up the boulevard. These are things that we can begin shopping in the near future. And then in the Adopt a Street opportunities, we've been looking at dressing up some of our neglected street furniture like utility boxes. We've brokered a deal with the local high school, Olympic High, to have their students create designs to work with a team of mentors, and then to look at the local businesses to sponsor the high quality vinyl printing of these boxes. The good thing about it is that they're temporary, so if they're not liked, they can be replaced. They have a graffiti removal coating on them, and it's a great way to connect the businesses to the local youth in the development of the streetscape. Curbside planters is another idea that we have to provide immediate green relief to the sidewalk. The idea is that a business can purchase a curbside planter, and just by that transaction, the next day a planter could show up installed, possibly by Chrysalis, and we can begin to further define that pedestrian zone and bring some greenness and vitality to the boulevard. The last idea in the early implementation phase is to use simple materials like paint to begin to create an identity for the corridor, simply by painting the light poles. These poles are already painted with gray graffiti paint, so this would just be replacing that graffiti paint with a signature color that told people as they were driving or as they were walking that they were on the Lincoln corridor. Now, in the category of 1 to 5 years, these are projects that are a little bit more capital intensive, require us to ask the council for money, require more design, construction documentation, and possibly some additional permitting from the city. The big kahuna of the evening are the medians. We've been looking at 2 alternatives, a minimal and a maximum. We've got them in a larger format in the back of the room, and they're online. But essentially the difference between the two is the minimal approach places medians along the boulevard that does not change in any way the turning profile of the street. They're basically opportunistically placed where they don't restrict any turning movements. When we first looked at this, it just didn't feel like it met the goals of creating a greener Lincoln Boulevard, of reducing the expanse of asphalt. So we looked at the maximal treatment. And this one takes everything that the minimal approach has, but adds medians in places that are front onto low volume streets. So some turning movements would be restricted, and doubles the expanse of medians. We'd love to talk to you about that. We're looking at 3 additional crosswalks at Grant, Pine, and the Wilson Pier couplet. This creates a predictable pattern of crossing roughly every 650 feet. It closes the gap. In some areas we are at about 1,300 feet between crossings, which is just not acceptable from a pedestrian standpoint. So we've identified these 3 areas after much debate about where the crosswalks could be located, and we're still studying the type of signalization. There's an opportunity to add up to 150 new pedestrian lighting poles and to retrofit the existing auto-oriented Cobra heads. And of course, we would upgrade these with LED and multiple series circuitry. We've been looking at curb extensions, both on the side streets and on Lincoln Boulevard. Because of the